the majority of people that are malnourished now are actually clinically obese.
One of the excuses given by people to eat unhealthy is that eating healthy at home is too expensive and it's too complicated. Tell me why that's bollocks.
Stop buying the expensive, shitty snacks. I don't think you should have guilty pleasures.
I can't be arsed going around the supermarket to find 3 grams of buffalo's testicle juice. You don't even understand what you're eating.
It should be something that's taught. When you're using a great product, you don't need all the thrills that go with it.
How the fuck do you keep coming up with creative ideas in an industry that is done to death?
Always love food. Can't remember not. I want to show other people how to cook and talk about ingredients.
Gordon Ramsay, is he as grumpy in real life as he's in the show? Hey, Matt Haycox here with a quick interruption just to say I hope you're liking the show, but please like, subscribe or comment. That's how we can bring you better guests. That's how we can make the show better each week. So please, that's all I ever ask of you. We never charge. We never ask anything else. Just please give us a few moments of your time. Guys, welcome to another episode of Stripping Off with Matt Haycox, where we metaphorically strip down our guests. We get to hear their story, their experiences, and we learn about money, business, life, and everything that our amazing guests have got to teach. And today we're cooking up a storm with a true whiz of the kitchen, none other than the champ of BBC's Yes Chef back in 2016, and the creative mind behind the cookbook Easy. So Chris Baber, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
So we just been talking about hot cross buns.
Oh, and, you've done a good effort with a few of them.
But no, not just hot cross buns, but entrepreneurship, marketing. We talk about rowing your own boat, and quite a few interesting things we were talking about before we started to record. So very much looking forward to some of the angles that this conversation can go down. I think it's going to be very applicable to anyone's career, anyone's way of life. But just set the scene and tell us how it all began for you. Was 2016 when you first got known?
Yeah, that was it. And I mean, I'll go back to before that in a second, please. But that Yes Chef was the moment, and there was a moment, a very specific one, where I thought I need to work in food full time as a job. Growing up in Northumberland in a market town, beautiful part of the world, you don't realise it till you move away. Lived there till I was 25. Always loved food. Can't remember not. I'd want to stand in the kitchen and help cook, and as soon as I was tall enough, cook for myself. But we didn't grow up around restaurants and things like that. I took a lot of inspiration from, your Rick Steins of the world on TV. And I thought if I could ever work in food, it would be that more. I want to show other people how to cook and talk about ingredients. That's what I'd love to do. And then, growing up, always had this entrepreneurial spirit, had small businesses, had a nightlife business. I was always trying to carve my way. Didn't really see eye to eye with, education in the academic sense. And then I started Instagram just from literally hassling people with pictures of food to my friends, going, go on Instagram. But this is 2016 when it was just a picture. Someone from BBC reached out to me and said, we've got a competition for home cooks called Yes Chef. You'd be a great contestant. Do you want to do it? So I thought, you know what, why not? Let's give it a go. And at the time, I don't know, I had a couple of thousand people on Instagram cooking my recipes at home. And I've gone on this show, and Atul Kutcher and Pierre Kaufman, 2 fantastic Michelin Star chefs, with the judges, end up winning. And I remember taking a plate of food up to Atul. The first part of the show, I'd cooked this dish, and he ate it and looked me in the eye, and he just went, you've absolutely nailed it. And it was that moment, getting that gratification from a Michelin Star chef that I aspired to be like on TV or whatever, giving me that feedback. I had this feeling inside of I need to make a go of this. And after the show, off his own back, he said, Chris, come down to London, you can work in my restaurant in Mayfair. And then 2 weeks later, moved down, left all
Did you go and work there?
Yeah, I went down.
I'm actually just looking back at my notes here, because I don't know the name, Atul Kutcher, but I've just realised he's from Tamarand, which is one of my literally top 3 restaurants in London, where I go every time I'm down. So I will actually be down there later this week, but every time I'm in London, I love that place. Yeah, that's where he started. I think back in the 90s, he got it a star, then he went on. He's had several restaurants since, but that's where he began his journey. So it was an absolute game changer, getting that opportunity, and being from a small town, and hadn't been to uni, hadn't travelled, always was very focused on having a business around there. I didn't really know exactly what, but I just went for it. What do you think it was that kind of gave you that entrepreneurial spirit? I mean, were your parents business owners?
No, it's interesting. It's hard to dig into what that is, but I remember being 13, we were chatting earlier, I had a car washing business, was putting cards through doors.
And was that, I mean, what were you seeking? Were you seeking money?
I guess in a way I was, but also just this sense of fulfillment you get from putting the work in and seeing the rewards at the other end. I always found that really interesting. It was me and a mate of mine, Johnny, at school. We used to always want to do our own thing, but my parents weren't entrepreneurs. My mum was a nurse, worked in the NHS for 40 years. My dad was in the military, then he worked in insurance, and they worked so hard, and I admire that so much. And I always just wanted to do my own thing. And it's a weird one, because you would think I came from a family of business owners, but I didn't.
What about cooks? I mean, was your mum was your mum that was just a decent cook? Was she just a family cook?
Yeah, just, again, people have this presumption, you would have had spices from your travels in Morocco. We went on normal, beautiful holidays, by the way, like just time with the family, but nowhere really exotic. And it was, lasagna, spag bol, chicken curry, Sunday roast kind of thing. It was nothing adventurous, but I think, I'd just see people cooking up a store, mainly on TV, because we didn't have access to the restaurants, and get in the kitchen and try and replicate that stuff for myself. And that's where my sort of love for transforming some simple ingredients to something delicious kind of came from.
I think it's interesting to see some of the bigger restaurants now that actually make a name for themselves, just doing fantastic versions of those classic dishes. I think fancy restaurants and what's like getting out of home was always, to go to a restaurant was always seen as something where you've got to have these weird and wonderful dishes, super complicated. You don't even understand what you're eating. But things like shepherd's pie, spag bol, a chicken scallop or whatever. Yes, the dishes that people could cook at home, but they are just timeless classics that, if done well, you can make a career out of.
Oh, totally. And I think things go in cycles, and we'd seen all that stuff. I remember back on the day at MasterChef, it was all foams and jus. I remember watching that stuff with my granddad, and he couldn't get his head around it. And I think we've become so in tune with our quality of our ingredients, where it comes from now. Like me, growing up in Britain, I'm incredibly passionate about British seasonal produce, and I think when you're using a great product, you don't need to do as much to it to make it into something absolutely insane. You don't need all the thrills that go with it all of the time.
Talk to me about life in a Michelin Star kitchen, and I want to try and maybe pull some parallels or analogies here. I recorded a podcast a couple of weeks ago with a guy called Mark Priestley, the F1 Elvis, and he used to be Lewis Hamilton's mechanic and working for McLaren under Lewis Hamilton, and he now kind of goes around the world talking about how to run your business like an F1 team, and what entrepreneurs and what business owners can learn from the way that F1 is run, with the attention to detail, with the teamwork, the team building, the fastidiousness, etc. And you may tell me I'm completely wrong, but I would see a military run Michelin Star kitchen as very much that same kind of analogy, that attention to detail, levels of production line, team that needs to come together is very much the same thing. So
I think you've hit the nail on the head. And by no means am I going to say I've worked in France training for 15 years. I worked in a Michelin Star restaurant for 6 months. I'm really proud of it, and I took a lot away from it. But that intense experience of the efficiency, the teamwork, when one person dropped the ball, everything can kind of drop. So it is this teamwork, efficiency, attention to detail, and just standards as well. And I think the pride people take in their work to achieve, everyone's in that same boat to achieve the same outcome. You've got to be really in it. But there's so much from what you've said about the F1, it is that team effort and all of the bits that go with it.
And what makes it run in a way so much more efficient than the local Pizza Hut, for example? And why can't Pizza Hut apply those same logics or theories, even though it's just a different ingredient?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like some of the chains, they do have amazing systems in place, because they have so many restaurants. They follow the same system throughout them all to keep them consistent. So there's almost a framework which they adhere to. I guess as you go up into the finer dining, it's just the standards of the food than the timing. You've got people, there's a lot more, I guess the pressure's slightly on more there in that sense.
And when we talk about, I guess, like the well-known Michelins and chefs like Atoll, or other household names like a Gordon Ramsay or something, on a cook night in one of their restaurants, what do they actually do? I mean, are they doing much cooking, or are they just are they the what's the word? The conductor of the orchestra?
Yeah, I mean, hey, I can't put words into any of their mouths. I don't know how they run their businesses, but from friends I've got in the industry, I guess you get to that level. Yeah, you're cooking now and again, but you're the visionary, and you're also giving other people an opportunity to come in and learn and have some creativity in their kitchen under their name. And I think that's where Atul was amazing with me, in that, yes, he wasn't in there cooking every day, but he's been there and done all of that. He's got a vision for this restaurant and how it should be. But I think giving younger people an opportunity, or anyone, doesn't matter your age, to come in and learn and help create something towards the same goal.
And you say creativity, and I guess, this is probably my inability to have vision in a field that's absolutely not my area of expertise, other than my ability to eat hot cross buns. Yeah. But where did your creativity come from in an industry that I would kind of say, from a layman, is done to death? Like, I mean, you're not inventing a new animal, you're not inventing a new vegetable. I mean, how the fuck do you keep coming up with creative ideas that get people going, wow, Chris has done this so fucking different?
I think, first of all, you can't beat the classics, and there's only so many spag bol recipes out there for that sort of thing. But I think a lot of it comes from like travel, and I'm lucky enough now to live in London, which is such an eclectic mix of cultures, and we've got access to so many ingredients from around the world. But I think travel's a big one, and just learning from people in other cultures how they use that ingredient to the best it can be, and bringing that back and giving it a go and putting your own spin on something, is probably the way it is. I'm
trying to think in my head while we're talking as well. I think probably a business analogy to that for me would be that often people talk about inventing a new business and inventing a new new idea, and my view is that like once every 10 years a revolutionary thing comes around, like an Uber, or I was going to say that's probably not even the right example there, but let's say like an iPod or something. But the rest of the time, there are no new businesses. There are no new business ideas. It's the same things, either delivered in a different method or executed in a different way. And the ideas themselves are almost irrelevant. It's the execution that matters. So I guess you're not going to invent a new spag bol, but where's your beef coming from? How are you presenting it on the table? Which cheese are you putting on top? And execution is everything. Idea is 10 a penny.
I think that's right. And I think for me, especially because a lot of my work now is creating recipes for people to cook at home, I get such a passion from that, and giving people confidence in the kitchen. Yes, there could be one recipe for, you use your spag bol example. How I create that in a way that makes someone feel confident about doing it. It is that execution element as well. But I think the provenance of the ingredients is important. So you could eat some thing in the Lake District that's the same dish but with local ingredients to what you might get down south, and just that subtle flavour profile or local differences which can transform a similar ingredient into something fairly different.
I mean, we've talked about you obviously having an entrepreneurial streak from an early age, but I mean, how often do you see, let's say, big chefs that are also truly great business operators? And I mean, I think I mentioned to you, Jean-Christophe Novelli came on the show 6 or 9 months ago, and he very happily admits that he is a terrible businessman. An amazing chef, terrible businessman who's lost money hand over fist. With everything he does, if he doesn't have a partner, if he doesn't have someone to kind of, I guess, control the finances and look after the money while he looks after the food. I mean, any stories there? Any I guess great guys or bad guys?
I think a lot of it comes down to having the right team around you, doesn't it? Because I think everything can come down to a team effort. And surrounding yourself with the right people makes all the difference. And also being able to admit sometimes you might get into a project and being able to realise and step away from the wrong thing rather than flogging a dead horse at some points and having the pride to be able to go, you know what, that isn't working, let's pivot, let's change. But I think that ability to keep moving when you need to and actually see what's working and stick with it. But I think that's something I've always been fairly good at. And because I'm not in a restaurant, I work for myself, I consult for different brands. Maybe I'll start my own one day. It's always a learning, but just constantly looking for the opportunities is another thing as well.
I mean, when you kind of go to cookery school, I know you didn't have all the formal training, but I mean, when chefs are learning to be chefs, do they ever get taught about the monetary side as well? Like, listen, you've just made a beautiful dish there, but it's so fucking expensive to make that you could never possibly sell it on, or that without a margin of X, you haven't got the money to be able to pay for the other people in the kitchen.
I mean, that's a great question, and one I'm probably not qualified to talk about, but I think there is some guidance, but I couldn't go into that. But great point though, because there's having the execution of being able to cook, but actually transform that into a business, whether it's doing what I do, which is a lot of social media and working for different brands, or whether you're going to go into the restaurant game. I think, you know, it should be something that's taught, and even getting away from food, just in schools, the first thing I did is you start working for yourself, you start earning some money, and then you go, well, how do I file a tax return or something like that? It's the stuff that you seem to learn on your way that they don't teach you at school, isn't it?
How have you built up your social media following?
So constantly posting recipes was how it started, but this is back when it was just an image. It wasn't a video or anything like that. So it was relatively simple.
These were your recipes?
Yeah, just my own recipes. Literally cook dinner at home. This is years and years ago. Take a picture, write the recipe, and built a bit of a community. And I think building a community is key thing to keep them engaged and having people want to join. And then various projects. I think I did a huge partnership with Marks and Spencer's, which really helped grow my profile. One of the proudest things I've ever done. And it gave me a lot of recognition, and you know, we did a lot of stuff through TV and ITV and in store, cardboard cutouts and everything, and that really helped with the social media profile. But I think persistence and just sort of sticking with your message and following through with it.
Have you still got a cardboard Chris cutout at home?
Funnily enough, my mum's got one at home because I couldn't make it home for Mother's Day one year, so I spoke to my friend Sherry at Marks and Spencer's, any chance of shipping one of them cutouts up to my mum? But the bother is, it's in my old bedroom. I was up there the week. You wake up in the night and I've got a cutout of myself. It's a bit frightening, to be honest.
Let's just talk about the Marks and Spencer's gig, because just before we started recording, we were talking about how you got that, and unless I misheard, that was a gig that you got yourself from a relationship that you made off the back of networking. I thought I'm gonna stick that in the memory bank, because one of the biggest things I always talk about for my own success is my network, the power of that network, and how I probably spend 50% of my working life. Now, even this is a form of networking for me. I have the podcast because I get to meet great people. I think particularly in the celebrity world, I think it's the biggest missed opportunity of networking as well, because 9 times out of 10, once you've got a bit of profile, you get the ego with it, and you think everybody should be coming to you. Whereas the reality is that profile is probably going to be short-lived, and it should be a time that you're doubling down on it, a time that you've got to take advantage of the fact that people want to speak to you right now. So so use it to push and grow that network as much as you can, because the time that you've lost your profile, at least you've still got your network, and it'll be there to take you onto round two. But I mean, is networking something that's been accidental for you, or have you made a conscious effort to go and do that?
I think the accidental bit's been a northerner and chatting to everyone, because I came down to London, I left the restaurant, I had this vision of what I wanted to do within the media space and kind of what I'm doing now. Didn't know anyone, was out there on my own, and it was like, right, well, I need to get to know people. And I think just having a bit of chat with people, as you do when you're from the north, really paid off. And I made a conscious effort to reach out to people, search for PRs that worked in food, turn up to restaurant events and launch parties, and slowly but surely, and also use social media. That's such a strong tool now to make connections, strengthen relationships, arrange meetups in person. And I probably spent a year and a half working my way around. And I think in terms of Marks and Spencer, something I'm incredibly proud of, and I loved that project so much. I ended up meeting someone else at BBC. I did something for Blue Peter, launched a cookery club for kids, a fantastic thing, fairly small scale. And that got noticed by someone. I'm at another event, and then they moved to another business. Then I'm at this PR event. I met the marketing director of Marks and Spencer's, had a chat. 2 days later, I'm in the office, and it all just sort of adds up. And I think the power of the network is, it's played a massive part in any success I've had. And going forward, I know it will continue, so I still make an effort.
And I was going to say, presumably not resting on your laurels. It's not, I've done this networking and I've got my Marks and Spencer's gig and I'm the big dog and that's the end of it. So I've got this Marks and Spencer's gig and I'm going to use that to meet more people to parlay that onto something else.
100%. And I think one big thing is just really simple. Just be nice to people. Just work hard and don't be a dick and have a chat, because even just some of my personal friends in London, never mind the business side, you move to a big city, you don't know anyone, and it's incredibly lonely because there's a lot of people around, but you don't know any of them. So even friendships as well as business relationships are formed from making an effort to just be nice, have a chat. And funnily enough, this morning I got a message from someone. I've just been booked to do a couple of episodes on a BBC show. Someone I'd met years ago. They just reach out because you've made the effort, you've been nice, and things do come back around, don't they?
I think something else I picked up on, which was an important point to make as well. You talked about a couple of previously not so great experiences with agents or managers that you've had. I think another big mistake, which whether it's for people in the media or for people in any kind of business, is to hire a consultant or to outsource something to a third party and then just forget about it, leave it to them and move on. And you really have to continue to control all parts of it. Yes, okay, you might not be able to be a manager because you don't have the contacts with the TV companies or whatever it may be. But when you give yourself over to that manager, you've got to ride the fuck out of them, because you can obviously use your common sense and the fact that you know your brand and your business better than anybody else to know if they're acting in your best interest, if they're fighting hard enough for you.
I totally agree. And I think one thing I've always stood by, whether it's that or any sort of work, is you've got to take full responsibility for everything, because you meet a lot of people in my game, any business or any sort of work environment where, they're dealing with that, that's all right. Well, actually, I think if you take full responsibility and you're always on top of it, then the only person to blame is yourself, because I'm not one to point the finger and blame people for anything, because I'll take responsibility. If it's going great, let's keep going. And if it's not, well, I'm responsible for that as well. So then let's end it and let's move on somewhere else.
And that's the thing, because even when it is a third party who's let you down, you put that third party in that position of control. I think the two key things that I think are important for me to try and be successful in business are, one, to know as much about every area of the business as possible. And again, I guess using the chef context, you can say, well, I'm the chef, I cook in the kitchen. I don't, Steve looks after front of house, Claire looks after the finances. If you leave Steve and Claire to do that I'm not saying you need to know enough to be able to do their job better than them, because that's probably not realistic. But you've got to at least know enough to know that you can challenge them, to know that they're not taking the piss, they're pulling the wool over your eyes or whatever. I think, that's key number one. And key number two is, I always like to say that everything's my fault. Because then if you look at everything as your fault, it's the only way you can then change it. Even if you've been let down by a member of staff, let down by a supplier, we can blame them, but that's not going to fix anything. I hired that member of staff. What was wrong in my hiring? I put that supplier in a position to be able to fuck me. Why did I do that? What can I change for next time? I think those two key things are applicable to any business, any area of media, any area of life, and are very important for.
I totally agree. And I think going back to your first point in terms of taking responsibility, if I've got an opportunity to work with a brand, a company, whatever that might be, I want to fully immerse myself in it and learn, not just stay in the lane of, I'm just going to do my job and go. It's just go above and beyond for everything. What else can I learn? And, make the most of being in that room, whether it's a development kitchen, a business, a marketing meeting, show up to things you don't even need to be at, just to learn. You don't know who you're going to meet there or what you might learn that might help you in the next phase. And I think that's another part of my sort of mindset and just how I go about my business of if I'm involved in, say, Marks and Spencer's, for instance, why don't I want to learn a bit more about the marketing side of it and sit in on some of those meetings and learn a bit about this and a bit about that? And it always just helps. And again, it's just that taking responsibility for, here's the situation, what's the most I can get out of it?
It's interesting listening to this, because going back to the F1 mechanic I was talking about a minute ago, he was saying exactly the same stuff in the context of Lewis Hamilton's success. Basically, talk about when you look at an F1 driver in general, they're only really contracted to rock up on a Thursday, stay for the practice and the qualies, race on a Sunday, and then go. He said, but if you look at Lewis, he's always, Monday to Thursday, he's working on his nutrition. He's sat in the office with the engineers and the mechanics, and he's looking at the data. When the race is finished, he's the last person to leave the track because he's still walking the track. He's still looking at the data, and when you've got a game of 20 people who are absolutely all at the top of the game anyway, because they are the world's best F1 drivers. The difference between, I guess, being world number one and one of the other 19 are those those micro differences that can only come from attention to detail, obsession, and absorbing yourself in every other possible area. And again, it's just applicable to every field, whether you're chefing, whether you're boxing, whether you're running a business. It's it's applicable everywhere.
It really is. I couldn't agree more. And it's like, if you're in that room, stay till the end, soak it up like a sponge, and just talk to everyone, because I think that's a big thing I've taken from just literally speaking to everyone. You don't know what they're going to say, who they might be, and treat everyone the same is another thing. Don't think, I've been booked for this, I'm going to turn up and do that. We're all equal. We're all just people, right?
I think another important facet of success is not overcomplicating things. Whilst I haven't had the pleasure of reading your book yet, I would imagine the title "Easy" is about keeping things simple and having easily produced stuff. So
yeah, I mean, hit the nail on the head. Easy. There was a million discussions with the publishers. What are we going to call this book? What's the hook? What's the catch? I'm like, there isn't one. It's easy. I put a poll out on social media and said, what do you like most about my recipes? Thousands of just the word easy, easy, easy. And that book really is, it's something I stand for. I grew up loving to cook, and my big thing is I want to help build confidence in the kitchen. I want to remove barriers to food. And you talk about keeping it simple, whether it's business or whatever. I've written it in everyday language, which has made a huge difference to a lot of people. If someone wants to learn to cook or isn't very confident, if it says saute a carrot that you've julienned, if you don't speak French or you're not a chef or really into it, it's off-putting, it's a barrier. So I've written everything in lightly fry in oil a carrot that you've chopped into matchsticks. Whether you're a great chef, a novice, somewhere in between, anyone can get that. And I think there shouldn't be any barriers. And again, the keeping it simple in terms of all of the ingredients you could buy in a supermarket, but equally, if you want to go to the farmer's market or butcher's, you could get them there too. So it's about just making it accessible, simple for everyone, no matter your ability.
Quite often, I don't do much cooking anymore. I've got my 2 or 3 go-to dishes, which is chicken lasagna and some kind of Thai chicken. But if I ever do veer off to try and do something more exciting, when I pull up recipes, I always look for the easiest one, and sometimes you'll see a recipe, I don't know, whatever the food is, and it'll be 25 different ingredients to make that thing. And then I see another recipe and it's 6 ingredients to make the thing. And when I look at what they are, I think, first of all, I can't be arsed going around the supermarket to find, 3 grams of buffalo's testicle juice or whatever it may be that we're going to put 1 drop of, because I can't find it, I can't be bothered, but I think the reality is it's not going to make the slightest bit of fucking difference to that dish anyway. Now, there's obviously becomes a tipping point where taking out too much does make a difference. But I guess, again, in terms of like business analogies or analogies to other things, how much stuff do you see in the kitchen that is just totally overcomplicated? And I guess where that kind of 80-20 rule can apply, that 80% of the taste, 80% of the success of the flavour is going to come from 20% of the ingredients and 20% of the effort.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think a lot of it comes down to, especially for home cooking and my style, is if you've got good quality ingredients, that's the 80%. The 20% is the other bits. You don't need all of those buffalo testicle jus on top of it. If you just buy a really good piece of beef, you could just season that with some veg. That's delicious. So I think one of the big things is all these fads of gadgets and stuff where they are the things that people jump on it. It's going to change the game. It hasn't. It's just simple ingredients cooked well, I think, is the key for me anyway to home cooking. And that's the way to build people's confidence. Keep it simple.
Do you enjoy the TV experience?
I love it. Yeah, I remember walking into that studio we did in 2016. I felt really at home and comfortable. And I think the reason is because I love food and I love my message about this, showing people how simple it is. Marks and Spencer's, I travelled the country. talking about British seasonal produce, something I'm so passionate about, and to have that opportunity to share my message through them with some brilliant produce, I felt incredibly comfortable and I thrive on it. However, ask me to stand up there and talk about hair care or skincare, so I'm completely out of my comfort zone. So I do really like it, but ultimately it always comes back to, because someone might well take that recipe, try it at home. And for me, the biggest tick is I get messages on social media every single day, tons of them. Chris, made that chicken curry with the kids at the weekend. It was so simple. Wait all the leftovers the next day and we're going to make it next week. And I think if I've got that platform with TV or social to share a message and inspire someone and it works, happy days.
What is your passion about with seasonal produce and local ingredients? I mean, it's just your thing that you're really into, or does it really make a difference?
It does make a difference, and I think for a number of reasons. I'm proud to be British. I grew up here, and I always knew about, I grew up in the countryside, picking berries in the summer. I would always know kind of what's in season, but you lose touch of it because things were available all year round. And then when I took this role, traveling around the country, the message I would get from the farmers, you could have a chat for 2 hours, but it would always come back to, Chris, when it's in season, it tastes even better and it costs even less. Strawberries aren't on offer because Wimbledon's on. It's because they're growing like crazy and they need to get rid of them and sell them, or they're going to be left with a ton that are going to go in the bin. So it's something I developed even more of a passion for with all the travel I did. And, if anyone's thinking of environmental things now, shipping in South African green beans when you could get them from here, or strawberries in December from the other side of the world, well, they don't taste as good. They cost more because they've been imported. So just the positives of seasonal British food are right up there. Number one being taste.
Talk to me a bit about nutrition, healthy eating, or lack of. I know you've got a bit of a background in sport. 800 metres, you said you used to run?
Yeah, I used to compete. So being a teenager into my early 20s, if I could have done anything other than what I do now, I would have loved to have been a professional athlete. But I tore my patella tendon and that kind of stopped. But, always loved food, always loved fitness. But it was, especially back then, like 15 years ago, all you'd see in any fitness magazine or whatever you're trying to read up on getting fit and what to eat was boiled chicken, boiled rice, the chicken and broccoli brigade. But because I loved food, it was, how do I make something that is delicious enough for me to eat as a foodie, if you want to say, and also my family to eat, but good enough for me to fuel my body as an athlete, a runner. How do I make a chicken tikka masala, for example, that's actually healthy enough for me to eat, but tastes amazing enough to want to eat it? And that was just a style that I guess I gradually adapted over the years. I've got a big partnership coming up with Men's Fitness magazine soon, and we're going to do some proper food, but good enough to eat if you're meeting your training goals. But I've never been one for counting calories. I think I just keep it really simple. Eat fresh food, buy, fresh stuff, everything in moderation. A bit of what you fancy does you good, and I think you've got to treat yourself. And for me, it's about having a healthy relationship with food and not cutting certain things out. I don't think you should have guilty pleasures, because I think food is a joy. It is a pleasure. It's one of the greatest joys in life. And I think it's a shame that we've got access to so many beautiful ingredients and the most incredible restaurants, especially in London, where they're serving things that probably aren't healthy, but that's a treat and that's a joy. And that's one of my big joys. And to see people go, I'm not eating gluten. Why, are you celiac? No, I saw it on Instagram. Well, come on, you got to enjoy it as well.
Everybody's gluten-free now, aren't they?
Gluten-free, you try and order a coffee and you're
lactose intolerant.
The last milk you're offered is one from a cow, which I find quite entertaining. I took my dad down to London. We ended up in this coffee shop. My dad's a Yorkshireman, and we didn't know it was a vegan place, and he's gone through all the milks and he's had to leave because he couldn't settle with a soy milk or something like that. I just want it from a cow.
Tell me, one of the excuses given by people to eat unhealthy and to use takeaways, etc., is that eating healthy at home is too expensive and it's too complicated. Give me, first of all, tell me why that's bollocks, and then give me 4 or 5 top tips for someone who is unhealthy, out of shape, and living on takeaways because they think it's too complicated and too expensive. How can they do it quickly and easily?
I think one way to cut down a massive load of cost is, regardless of your main meal, stop buying the expensive, shitty snacks that you eat in between. And I know it's everything in moderation, but some people are caning that stuff, the chocolate bars, the rubbish. If you just stop buying that and it's not in the house, you're not going to eat it. And just don't buy as much of the rubbish stuff. And then when it comes down to tips for cooking, if you're just using fresh stuff, like right now, get some asparagus, put a poached egg on top, bit of salt and pepper. I bet you that's less expensive than the 12 quid takeout or something, you know.
I mean, I was going to say, what kind of budget should someone expect to be able to make a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner for if they're going to cook it themselves, buy fresh ingredients?
I mean, great question. Depends on what you want to actually make. But if you look at,
I've got no money.
Yeah.
I'm on minimal income. You know, cost of living crisis. You know, struggling with the kids. I want to feed a family of 4. Something tasty enough to enjoy, but you know, money is so tight.
Yeah, cool. Chana masala, chickpea curry, something I love from a takeaway actually. Chickpeas, 50, 60, 70 pence a tin, depending where you go. A couple of onions, sweat them down, some ginger, some garlic, some powdered spices. Yeah, they're £1 each for a jar in the supermarket, but they're going to last you a few months. Cook the spices down, throw in your chickpeas, some fresh tomatoes, tomato puree, simmer it for 20 minutes, squeeze a lemon. What's that? 3 quid, feeds 4 people, big thing of nice rice with it. Chickpeas packed full of fibre, protein, really simple. Beans and pulses are a great way to keep the cost down if you're looking for protein, also nourishment. But then when it comes down to buying chicken, and we talk about adaptability of recipes, swap out your chicken breasts for drumsticks. I was in the shop earlier, I saw really good quality pack of chicken drumsticks, £1.50, chicken breast £4. So I think it's been able to make suitable swaps and just being confident enough to make those swaps.
And I guess where you buy the stuff from makes all the difference as well. I mean, just a anecdotal example. 3 or 4 years ago, my mate and I, we did Rich House Poor House, the TV show, and we were given the budget of the lady that we swapped with to live on. So we had £67.13 to live on for the week. And one of the things that we filmed, because obviously we've got 5 or 6 scenes that we've got to film. One of them was going to the supermarket to do the shop so that we could cook for her mother that night and have some food in the house for us. Now, it wasn't realistic because obviously, you know, to film, you've got to get permission to film. So the only place we could film in was almost like a local spa shop. And we went and bought the ingredients, and we've done in half the week's budget because we're buying the local spa shop, because we're paying 4 quid for cheese instead of 80 pence. We're paying 3 quid for butter. And, you know, I guess it's almost like a false/hypothetical example, but just goes to prove the point that if you don't plan, you know, and if you buy these things in the wrong place, you know, like an ex of mine, you know, a few years ago, she didn't have much money, and when she used to cook for me, she'd make the most mega meals, but she'd be going to Aldi for the vegetables as opposed to me going to Marks and Spencer's for them, and she's making something mega. Well, it's mega because she could cook and I couldn't, but you know, she's making it for 2.5 quid. I've been making it for 25 quid just because it's a Marks and Spencer's tomato versus an Aldi tomato, which ultimately is exactly the same thing.
Yeah, it's a great one, and I think you've just got to shop smart. I think that's a big thing I always say to people, and everyone's budget is different, but the planning, that word there, I think is key, because the last thing you want to do is buy stuff. The amount of food that goes in the bins at home is actually ridiculous, and that's money. I always say to people, you know, when you throw that half a pack of herbs in the bin, just pretend you're throwing 50 pence in the bin, or you didn't finish all your chicken. Well, that pack of chicken was 4 quid, another £2 in the bin. So if you actually write a meal plan, it sounds so basic, but we spoke about keeping things simple. Monday to Sunday, what you're going to eat every day. Are there some ingredients that could go over 2 meals? There's a big section on that in my book, and actually planning for success. And I think a lot of it is, yes, where you buy it, but how much is going in the bin and you're rebuying stuff on different days.
I can tell you I'm the worst for that, because one of my obsessions, if you like, is having a nice full fridge. But having a nice full fridge is obviously at the complete expense of being efficient. You know, I kind of want everything in there for when I want it in there, but then you just know by definition that you're chucking 50% of it away.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
It's a tough one, and I think people should get better at understanding that you don't need the full fridge every day and being able to use what you've got. And again, if people have a bit more confidence, you can get to the end of the week and see, there's a few bits and pieces in the fridge. I don't need to go and buy anything else because I've got the ability to cook something from scratch. But I heard a stat, kind of changing the topic, but back to your first point about health and nutrition and food, that the majority of people that are malnourished now are actually clinically obese, is a stat that I heard, which really shocked me to think, a lot of people are overfed but undernourished. So there's obviously money going somewhere, and they're saying they can't eat healthy, but that's just something I heard.
It's too many hot cross buns.
Yeah, well, that's it. I saw you quite liberal with the butter on there.
You think that was liberal? I thought I was reining it in. You use your social media platform to promote mental health awareness. Why is that something that's important to you?
Yeah, I've worked with a charity called Better, and they did a book, and they used loads of different chefs and personalities and celebrities. And it was a small project initially that I'm going to get more involved with, but I think especially men's mental health. I'm a pretty basic lad from the north of England. I keep a lot of stuff bottled up, and just the power of being able to talk. But then where food comes into it, number one, I've always found that I don't even know what mindfulness means, but I hear it a lot now. Just being present in the moment, actually creating something, being so fully immersed in that experience. I moved to London and started a business of my own, working for myself, didn't know anyone. And I look back and think, those were fairly hard times, and you all face stuff. And I wish I'd just maybe spoken more. And I've also lost a few friends, which is frightening actually, to suicide.
Really?
All lads.
How old are you?
I'm 32.
Are they in your age bracket, are they?
One when I was, school friends. One when I was 16, one late teenagers, and then a good mate of mine when I was about 25. And that's 3 people before I turned 30. So it's one of them where I think what was going on in their head, and maybe just a conversation could have changed it. Maybe it hadn't, but I just think because I've dealt with it firsthand, any little thing I can do to even just say that word, mental health and awareness, if it sparks someone to have a listen and even have a chat with someone if they feel the need to, I just say, don't bottle stuff up.
And what kind of things do you do with the charity?
Oh, so we've got a big dinner coming up where we're just going to talk a bit more about the awareness.
Fundraising dinner?
Yeah. And
are you cooking?
I'm actually just going to do a talk, and they're going to work with a restaurant that also supports it. But as an ambassador, I'm going to have a chat with everyone, and then we do some social media videos around food, and there's a cookbook there. But it's certainly an area that I want to look at spending more time personally in, and helping to spread the word. Have
you ever used the tagline, "It's better with Baber"?
I haven't, but I'm going to note that down now.
You should put that down.
That's a good one.
Listen, let's talk about the future. Let's talk about expansion. You've obviously done a lot in a short number of years. You haven't got your own restaurant yet. I think it's funny because I guess we, again, bringing analogies in here. I guess as a chef, you'd always look at having my own restaurant as the kind of epitome of success. Whereas in, let's say, the media world, you look about having a TV show as the epitome of success. But I think with the new distribution channels of today, having a successful YouTube channel will ultimately be more profitable for you than having a TV show. And maybe not owning a restaurant is going to be better for you because you can do licensing deals and use your name and stuff. So I think it's a natural default to say, you're a top chef, why have you not got your own restaurant? But what does the future hold for you?
Yeah, great question. I think nowadays it's such a multifaceted thing, and I certainly haven't taken the conventional track to get to where I am, and I'm quite proud of that I've sort of carved my own lane, and I'm happy in it, and people can sort of say what they want about that, but I work incredibly hard. And do I want a restaurant? Not right now. I don't want to be pinned into one location. I've got the pleasure last year and some more stuff this year, like cooking for brands like Aston Martin out in Monaco, cooking for the launch of a car, having that flexibility and freedom to work with brands that I'm really passionate about and helping add value to these projects. I want to do a lot more of that. I consult and I'm an ambassador for another brand called Hexclad, which is the most amazing cookware brand. And I've been working with them for 2 years, and I guess a lot more food side, content side, but also looking at the business in the UK and helping them where I can there. I've taken a lot of enjoyment from that. So that's certainly a big part of my time and something I love. Great people. They're based out in LA, building up the team here. So that's another big focus for me. And then I do want to do another book, and I'd love to do more TV and obviously continue to grow my socials as well, which is incredibly important now. But I think television's something that I just really love, that buzz. So many people in one room. I'd like to do more of that. So there's a lot of avenues that I want to go down. I think that's the joy of today with working in food, whether you're a content creator, restaurant chef. There are so many opportunities if you go out and get them.
What about a cookery school?
That's a good one, because that's something I've really thought of. As you've probably gathered, I'm passionate about teaching people. During lockdown and COVID, I did like online cookery, which got picked up by ITV, and I was teaching families and kids to cook, and maybe
just for fun, like Insta Lives and things.
Yeah, 3 times a week, and I built a really solid community. And people still reach out to me now saying, Chris, it's normally the lad and their son who'd never stepped foot in the kitchen. They're still cooking together once a week, and it's really heartwarming. So a cookery school's a great one, but I like to do things in person. So, you know, maybe one day that. And talking about a restaurant, I think it would be later down the line when I'm a bit more settled, maybe somewhere out of London, a bit more of a base and a real passion project. But I think I've got a lot of places I want to go and things I want to do before that stage.
Well, listen, before you go, I've got some quick fire questions for you. So every chef needs to tell us what their favourite dish is.
Christmas dinner.
Really?
Yeah.
So
because, sorry to jump off the quickfire bit, but It's the one thing. I go home every Christmas, I cook Christmas dinner, eat it with a family, and I just think that, for me, just sums up what food's about. Cooking something relatively simple, but sharing it with your family and friends.
Do you have bread sauce with it?
Oh, yeah, you got to.
It's funny, we always get roast over in Dubai, and a friend of mine came around to cook one. She said she's like the queen of Sunday roast, so she comes round to mine to cook. I was like, don't forget the stuffing and the bread sauce. And she's like, what stuffing? What's bread sauce? Well, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah,
like, how can you have a roast without bread sauce? Tell me one famous chef you'd love to share the kitchen with.
Oh, God, there's so many of them. That's an amazing question. I'd love to one day, if the opportunity ever come, just step foot in the kitchen with Gordon Ramsay. Always loved that guy and aspired and enjoyed everything he's done.
And what's the aspiration with that? Is it just because he's super famous, or is it the personality, or is he a better cook than someone else?
He's super talented. Like, he really is. He's incredible. So just to have that experience of just standing there and do some cooking together would be amazing. I don't need any cameras or anything there. Just to literally stand and do that to someone I've looked up to for so long would be an amazing experience.
Have you met him before?
I've met him, yeah.
Is he as grumpy in real life as he's in the show?
I think he's a gentleman. I think very grounded and very polite, and just comes across as an absolute gent.
I saw a show he did in America. I can't remember what it was called. I never watched that much TV, but I somehow picked up on this one, and there was loads of reruns of it on Netflix or whatever TV show it was I was watching, where he's not just going in the kitchen, but he's going into like shitty American restaurant businesses and fixing the whole business, you know, with the decor and the, you know, getting into the accounts and the front of house and the back of house. It was a really good show, actually. It was like a Dragon's Den meets Hell's Kitchen type thing.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I've seen some of them, and what always gets me is you see these people kicking off with him, think he's there to help transform your business. Why are you having a go at the guy? But it's all entertainment, isn't it?
Who's your favourite British chef? I mean, I guess the answer is going to be Gordon, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's so many of them now. Like, there really is. But yeah, he's up there. And then it's hard to say. I don't think I've got a favourite. I think there's so many that stand for so many different things, and they've all got their own styles and uniqueness. So yeah, that's a tough one. There can't just be one.
And tell me about a dish or something that's gone disastrously wrong for you.
Disastrously wrong. I think probably something that happened when I first started working in Mayfair. I think it was my first 2 days there. I'm in the back using this like 4,000-pound machine to whiz up the sauce. It was some red pepper thing. And I'm nervous anyway, standing in there with all these people that have worked in these kitchens for years. And I just remember not fixing it upright. And I'm in these chef's whites and the thing just blows up. And I'm covered in this red, what looks like blood. And I'm sort of shouting, like, fuck. And everyone's running in thinking I've severed a hand or something. And then they're like, do you know how much that costs? And I'm thinking, oh, God, this is all downhill from here. But it was just like, you look back and it was hilarious. But at the time, I think I've ever been more nervous.
You didn't get fired?
No, I didn't. No.
Good. Good. Still here to tell the tale. Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, mate. I've loved the story, loved your journey, and you know, like so many different people I get to talk to, I love the the analogies that can be applicable to everything else. So just before you go, obviously you've mentioned your social a few times. Just give yourself a little shout out. Where can people follow you? Where can people find out more about your cooking?
Yeah, the best place is just my Instagram. That's just Chris Baber. Search it in there. Everything I'm up to, the book, all the up and coming projects. It's all on there.
Well, thanks a lot for being here, mate, and I hope to taste your cooking myself sometime soon.
We'll get it sorted. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching Stripping Off with Matt Haycox. I hope you've enjoyed watching this week's episode, but please remember to like and hit that subscribe button so you can stay in the loop for future episodes. Have you got any burning questions? Have you got any killer ideas? Or slide into my DMs on social at Stripping Off with Matt Haycox, or simply comment below. And I'll see you again next time.